Hello, friend. You can rest here. No tasks tonight, just a quiet tour of volcanoes. We will move from slow shield giants to tall cones, then down into the places where rock begins to melt. If this calm journey helps, consider liking and subscribing so others can find it too. Why volcanoes? Because they build new ground, feed soils, shape weather, and quietly heat water under our feet. A simple fact to carry at the start: most volcanism happens under the ocean, along a world-long ridge, hidden from view, making fresh crust every day without headlines. Here is what to expect. Short, gentle scenes linked in a steady flow. Clear images, simple words, no rush. We will start where lava is thin and slow. Visit steeper mountains with ash and snow. Then slip beneath them to watch plates move and rock change state. When you grow sleepy, the earth will keep our place. A shield volcano begins with patience. Basaltic lava is hot and runny. It travels far before it cools. It piles up in wide layers that overlap like calm waves. Over time, the mountain becomes broad and low, with long flanks and quiet slopes that reach the sea. A stratovolcano grows differently. Magma there is thicker and cooler, often rich in silica and gas. Pressure builds, and the mountain grows tall by pulses. Layers of lava, ash, and broken rock stack into a steep profile that holds snow near the top and forests at the base. Hotspots do not ask a plate boundary for permission. A steady plume rises from deep mantle and burns a path through moving crust. Islands form in order, old to new along a line. The youngest sits above the heat. The oldest sinks and wears a coral ring like a gentle memory. Subduction zones write tall stories fast. An ocean plate dives under a continent or another ocean plate, dragging water down with it. Water lowers the melting point of overlying mantle, and pockets of magma collect. Cones rise in arcs that mirror trenches, neat chains that echo a deeper map. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Magma is not only melted rock, it is also crystals and gas. Its behavior depends on temperature, silica, and water. Hot basalt flows easily and builds shields. Cooler and stickier magma holds bubbles that want to expand. When they escape at once, ash and pumice rise high and drift far. A lava flow can look calm from a safe ridge. The skin darkens and folds, while the inside moves like slow syrup. Ropes form where the surface wrinkles. At night, the edges glow where the crust cracks and new heat shows. Lava tubes form when the top of a flow cools to a roof, while hot lava keeps moving inside. When the river drains, a cave remains. Long hallways with smooth floors and skylights where the roof fell in. Bats and rare plants later find rooms there, long after the fire has gone. On ocean floors, new crust grows in a different style. Lava meets cold water and quenches into round pillows that stack and break. The ridge is a seam that circles the planet. Fresh basalt appears, cracks, and is pushed aside by more. Most of this happens with no sound anyone hears. Gases are a quiet force. Water vapor, carbon dioxide, sulfur gases, and others move through magma and out to the air. They carry heat and form acids that can bite stone and lungs. They also build tiny crystals and long needles in cooling vents, decorations that look fragile and are not. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Ash is rock ground fine by force and shatter. It rises on hot columns and then falls as grey weather. A few millimeters can close a school. Many centimeters can fold a roof. Engines breathe it badly. Pastures need a rinse and time. Later, those same grains feed soils and hold water for crops. Pumice is a stone full of holes. It forms when frothy magma cools so fast the bubbles freeze in place. Blocks can float for months, drifting with currents, and beach whole islands with pale foam rock. Plants take root in it, and crabs borrow the shade. Ignimbrites are the footprints of fast clouds. When a column collapses, a hot mixture of ash, gas, and blocks rushes down valleys at highway speed. It moves around bends and over low ridges. After it cools, a welded sheet lies thick and tough, a page that keeps the memory of a single day. Not every eruption is tall. Many are small and stable and last for years, building little cones and short flows that stop at a field or a road. People watch them at evening from safe hills and eat a late meal, while red lines draw slow letters on a dark slope. Some lakes wear a gas problem like a hidden weight. Deep water can trap carbon dioxide from vents. A change can flip the column and free the gas all at once. It moves like a low cloud and stuns animals that breathe air. Pipes now lift the gas in steady threads, so it cannot build to danger again. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Hydrothermal systems are the gentle side of volcanic heat. Rain and snow seep down through cracks, warm at depth, and rise again. They carry minerals that stain stone in blues, reds, and whites. Pools steam and thin crust crackle underfoot where walking is not wise. Geysers are timed stories. Water fills a narrow tube and heats beyond boiling, held in check by pressure. A small change flashes some water to steam and pushes the rest out. The cycle repeats on a schedule that feels personal. When it skips a beat, the whole valley wonders why. Fumaroles are the volcano breathing between loud days. Steam and gas escape in thin streams and draw yellow and white lines on rock. Their smell warns before instruments do. Birds avoid the worst spots and nest where the wind keeps the air clean. Mud pots and acid pools are kitchens built by chemistry. Rock dissolves to clay and bubbles thump under a soft skin. The colors come from iron and sulfur finding new partners. In winter, heat raises light fog that looks gentle and is not. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Volcanic ash can change weather for a season. Fine particles in the upper air reflect sunlight and cool surfaces by a small degree. Skies take on deep colors at dawn and dusk. The effect fades as ash settles and rains wash the air. Longer cooling can come from sulfur gases that turn to aerosols. Tiny droplets spread high and wide and shade the ground. Farm yields shift, and winters write a few stronger lines. The planet adjusts, then returns to its usual tone. Soils near volcanoes are often rich. Ash holds nutrients and water like a patient sponge. Vines, grains, and coffee find good footing there. People farm on young slopes and learn the dates of old lava by what grows best where. Cinder cones are tidy projects. A vent throws bits of frothy lava that cool in flight and land as cinders. A small hill builds around the vent, often in a neat circle with a bowl at the top. Later, a short flow may spill from a low breach and write a last line. Calderas are large answers to large questions. When a huge volume of magma leaves a shallow chamber, the roof cannot hold. The ground sinks in a wide ring, and walls slide down in blocks. Lakes may fill the low place. New cones can rise inside the older scar. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Rock melts for three main reasons. It gets hotter, it gets wetter, or the pressure drops faster than the temperature does. Decompression melting makes basalt under ridges. Wet melting makes sticky magmas above subduction zones. Heat transfer makes local pockets near old bodies that refuse to cool quickly. Mantle is solid most of the time, but it can flow like glass over years. Convection cells move heat upward and pull cold masses down. Plates ride the top like slow rafts. Where they pull apart, magma rises. Where they collide, arcs form. The map we draw in school is a moving picture. Dikes and sills are the handwriting of magma in rock. Dikes cut upward through layers. Sills slide between them. Gardens in some deserts are fenced by basalt walls that were once dikes. Cliffs show dark fingers and sheets where magma took the easiest line. Volcanic glass cools so fast crystals have no time to form. Obsidian breaks in sharp curves and carries a dark shine. It once made knives and points that were light and strong. A single flake can be thinner than a hair and still hold an edge. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Not every hazard is fire. Lahars are mud flows that start when rain or melted snow meets loose ash. They move like wet cement and follow rivers to towns that never saw the cone. Sirens and maps teach routes to high ground in minutes, not hours. Ashfall asks for patience and filters. It scratches lungs, engines and eyes. Roofs must be cleared in time, not in panic. When the rain comes, drains must be open. Later, streets clean, and gardens accept the gift left after the trouble. Near some volcanoes, carbon dioxide seeps from soil in low spots. It is heavier than air and pools in hollows where animals rest. Fences steer herds away. Vents are marked, and meters watch the field. Monitoring is a quiet craft. Instruments listen for quakes that cluster and rise. GPS points track a slope that lifts by a few millimeters. Gas sensors count molecules no one can smell. Together they tell a story about what may come and when to step back. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Under ice, eruptions draw different shapes. Lava melts caverns and builds pillow stacks under a roof. When a flood breaks out, it cuts channels in hours that look like canyons from the air. Black lines in white fields mark where heat spoke without flame. On islands, a new vent may open in a pasture with no warning from the sky. A curtain of fire arcs along a crack, then settles into a single mouth. Roads reroute, houses step aside, new coastlines appear where none were planned. The map changes, and then it stabilizes. Volcanic arcs are elegant chains. Their spacing from the trench tells how steep the slab dives. Their height and style tell how hot and wet the wedge is. Names differ by region, but the logic repeats across oceans. Back arc basins sometimes open behind an arc. Extension tears crust, and small ridges grow where no one expected them. The sea covers the work and keeps it modest. Lines on a survey map later reveal a tidy seam. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Old lavas hold records of the planet's field. As they cool, iron grains point like needles that freeze in place. Later, we read their directions and learn how the field has flipped and wandered. Stripes on the seafloor match on both sides of a ridge and prove the crust moves. Volcanic gases feed minerals in odd forms. Sulfur grows as bright crystals near vents. Native copper and silver can plate the walls of old cracks. Zeolites fill voids in basalt with tidy cages that trap water and give it back. Thermal power borrows heat without taking the mountain. Wells bring hot water and steam to turbines and homes. The brine returns underground to keep the flow steady. Good fields run for decades with careful balance. Volcanoes teach patience more than fear. Most days they do nothing that reaches a camera. They move heat, build stone, and fold the crust in quiet inches. People live around them by learning the mood of their ground. If your eyes begin to close, let the thought be simple. Volcanoes are not only blasts and smoke, they are slow builders and steady heaters. When you return, we will walk inside a conduit, follow a dike through a cliff, and stand on a ridge that circles a hidden chamber. The story will be here in the same calm voice. A lava lake looks simple from a safe rim. The surface forms plates that drift and collide. Fresh cracks open with red light and then glaze over. The skin breaks again, and the cycle repeats as if the lake were breathing. On a gentle slope, basalt cools into two common styles. Smooth ropes form where the crust wrinkles into soft folds. Blocky clinker forms where the flow moves faster and tears itself. The same melt can switch styles as the ground steepens or the rate changes. When a crust thickens, the hot core keeps moving inside. The roof holds, and a tunnel grows under it. Later, the lava drains away and leaves a long cave. Skylights mark where the roof fell, and a quiet draft threads the hall. Along young coasts, lava reaches the sea and meets a shock. Glass quenches into black fragments and builds a new shore. Steam columns keep their distance and fall in wet snow. The line between land and water moves a little each hour. If the contact is shallow, the meeting can become loud. Water turns to steam inside porous rock and breaks it to ash. Waves spread the mix along the beach and dye the foam pale. The slope rests afterward and changes its plan for the next tide. A flat-topped mountain can rise under ice. Lava piles up until it meets a roof of meltwater, then cools to glassy rubble. When the ice goes, a mesa remains with steep sides and a broad top. It is a record of warmth trapped under winter. In quiet fields far from arcs, single vents open for short lives. A curtain of fire dances along a crack, then settles to one mouth. Scoria builds a tidy cone and keeps a bowl at the top. A short flow spills from a low breach and stops in a pasture. Some vents erupt through wet ground and form broad rings. Explosions dig a shallow crater and fling outward beds of tuff. A low rim surrounds a lake that will find its level. The pipe beneath holds broken rock that tells the story backward. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Inside a conduit, magma rises along a path set by older cracks. Walls polish as bubbles expand and shrink. Crystals grow and then melt back when pressure changes. The flow pauses in a pocket and then moves again when gas finds space. A dome grows when sticky magma reaches the surface and barely flows. It thickens by slow extrusion and tumbles rock from its sides. Hot blocks roll into gullies and cool in place. The dome may collapse and rebuild many times before the vent rests. When a tall column weakens, parts of it can fall. The mixed cloud rushes down valleys as a fast, hot current. It wraps ridges and fills hollows with a welded sheet. Later, we read the thickness and grains to follow the run. Lightning sometimes stitches the sky above a heavy ash plume. Colliding particles build charge in the column's churn. A bolt jumps and fades, and the sound arrives after the fall. The storm inside the eruption borrows the same rules as weather. On long ridges under the sea, pillow stacks grow with no audience. Each new lobe chills in seconds as it meets cold water. A thin skin hardens and cracks as the next lobe pushes through. The pile looks like rounded cushions from a submersible's light. Broken glass accumulates where waves grind fresh lava. The sand looks shiny and dark and warms quickly under sun. Grains lose edges fast and turn to normal color as they mix with older sand. The beach keeps changing without pause. Where a fissure crosses a road, people mark a new line. Pavement buckles, and a deep red stripe appears. The stripe thickens and sets as a ridge. Later, the ridge cools, and trucks drop cinders to even the grade. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Deep chambers are not empty rooms. They are networks of sills and dikes, stacked like quiet shelves. Melt moves between them while the rock around flexes a little. Crystals settle in slow rain and build layers by density. A chamber roof rises and falls by millimeters as gas comes and goes. Instruments on the surface watch that motion with careful patience. Tilt shifts a hair, and distances change by a coin's thickness. The numbers draw a small wave that says much. Rocks bring stories up by accident. Dark xenoliths ride in flows and reveal mantle minerals. Some carry water-rich pockets that hiss and pop as they cool. When split open, they show textures that grew under pressure for a long time. Columnar joints appear when thick lava or ash cools and shrinks. Cracks start at a cooling surface and connect into tidy shapes. Columns stand like closed pipes with many sides. The pattern repeats across cliffs with surprising order. Obsidian tells of rapid cooling without time for crystals. It keeps a deep shine and breaks with smooth curves. Perlite holds water in small spheres and pops when heated. Pitchstone sits between, with a matte face and a slower glass. In dry basins, dike swarms cross hills in parallel bands. The bands show old tension and a long memory of stretch. Valleys align with the same direction and keep the signal. Maps reveal the pattern even where ground cover hides it. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Large igneous provinces cover wide regions with layered flows. Eruptions recur over years that become longer seasons. Low shields merge into broad plateaus that cool and crack. Later soils grow on top, and rivers carve stair steps through stacks. Ash layers travel far and fall thin over fields and lakes. Each layer keeps a date written in crystals and glass. Cores from mud and ice store those pages in order. We use them to match time between distant places. Volcanic islands begin underwater and then lift above waves. The first rock hosts birds that rest and leave seeds. Plants spread along cracks that hold dew and dust. Insects arrive on driftwood, and then small lizards and shy birds follow. Reefs ring shield islands as lava cools and drops the coast. As the mountain sinks and wears down, the reef keeps pace. A lagoon forms between rock and coral and learns its own tides. Later, only the ring remains around a calm mirror. On a snowbound cone, heat rises through vents hidden under drifts. Meltwater finds paths and refreezes as strange towers. They mark gentle leaks that go on for months. Spring reveals black patches that match the winter map. Volcanoes under lakes write different chapters. Warm springs feed floors that look flat from above. Gas gathers in deep bowls and waits for a change. Small vents keep the balance by releasing a slow thread. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. People share the ground with all of this and make plans. Hazard maps draw lines around valleys that carry fast flows. Signs show routes to high places with short climbs. Drills turn steps into reflex so minutes matter. Farmers learn which slopes hold water after ash. Coffee grows where drainage is steady and frost is rare. Vines find mineral traces they like in young soil. Trees anchor cinders with roots that weave and last. Town builders study wind roses and choose angles for roofs. They avoid channels that align with gullies from the cone. Storage stays under strong beams and has a plan for dust. Sprinklers help settle ash when rain is late. Guides teach guests how to stand at the right distance. Trails keep people on sound rock and away from thin crusts. Boards explain colors and smells that mean danger. The day ends warm and without drama, which is the goal. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. A tall cone can sleep for long spans and keep quiet signs. Springs change taste a little, and plants shift their schedule. Small quakes tap in clusters too deep to feel. Instruments listen and place the notes on careful plots. Remote eyes measure motion from space with pairs of images. The ground lifts a little, and a colored fringe appears on a map. Weeks later, the fringe grows, or it fades as pressure drops. The pattern tells a simple story in thin lines. Some cones never rise high and still shape a plane. Monogenetic fields host many small vents spread wide. Each vent works once and rests forever. Together they write a low relief of tidy hills. Diamonds ride up in rare, fast eruptions through old crust. The pipes cool to soft blue rock with crystals set in it. Weather opens the top and leaves the heavy stones in gravel. People sift that gravel and find a clear history formed deep. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Water and heat work quietly after the loud days pass. Clay replaces glass in ash beds and seals them. Springs change course along new fractures. Caves grow where groundwater dissolves fresh flow tops. Life colonizes black rock in simple steps. Lichens mark first dots on cooling stone. Moss holds dust, and small ferns take root in pockets. Insects follow shade, and birds bring seeds in small gifts. On coasts with young flows, pools gather in skylights. Fish explore the rooms at high tide and leave with falling water. Crabs adopt shelves and corners without a roof. The tide keeps the clock and keeps the air sweet. In the distance, a plume thins and loses its color. The vent settles with low puffs and then goes still. Warm ground keeps a local winter short for a few seasons. Snow melts early in circles that show old breath. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. At night, a crater rim holds red points that pulse and fade. A bubble breaks and draws a brief arc of light. The lake below wrinkles and then smooths. Stars keep their places while the glow ebbs. Far away, a ridge under the sea continues its small work. Pillows add to pillows, and newborn crust slides aside. Hydrothermal vents build chimneys that grow and fall. The system breathes in chemistry instead of air. Closer to towns, warm water runs through pipes to homes. It leaves heat in walls and returns to the deep. The cycle repeats and keeps a steady comfort. Fields of steam carry winter for many streets. When you pause and look back, the line is clean. We trace flows that move like syrup and flows that shatter. We saw cones that work once and arcs that work for ages. The ground remembers all of it. If sleep begins now, that is fine. The story will wait with the same quiet voice. When you return, we will walk caldera rims, cross ash plains, and step down into chambers that rose and fell. The map is long, and the route is kind. A mountain with snow at the top can hide warm ground. Steam threads rise through vents cut by frost. In spring, dark patches open first where heat lingers under drift. These shapes match maps of fractures drawn months before. A caldera rim is a broken circle with many doors. After a large withdrawal of magma, the roof sank by stages. Blocks tilted and slid, and lakes found levels on the new floor. Later domes rose in the quiet center and kept growing. Inside some calderas, roads cross yellow flats and silent cones. Older flows show small glass and sharp edges. Younger flows show dull skins and wide cracks. A ranger points to a distant bulge and calls it a new question. Ash plains carry thin waves frozen in place. Each ripple marks the front of a flow that passed once. Small dunes shape lee and windward sides in slow wind. A single feather leaves a clean line and tells you which way air moved today. Ignimbrite cliffs keep pages of a fast chapter. Lower layers are welded and ring under a boot. Upper layers are softer and crumble at a touch. Cooling joints cut tidy hexagons where heat escaped in order. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. In a dry valley, A wall of basalt looks like pipes. Columnar joints form when thick sheets cool and shrink. Cracks meet at near equal angles and step inward. Light runs down their seams and turns in regular shadows. A Mar lake sits in a shallow ring of tuff. Its rim is a necklace of fragments that fell outward. The floor holds a simple bowl of calm water. Reed beds grow in coves where springs feed the edge. Tuff cones rise near shorelines where water met fire. Beds dip outward like pages of a short book. Lapilli size grows closer to the vent as energy increases. At the base, beach sand shows ripples that resumed after the day ended. A resurgent dome lifts part of a caldera floor. The rise is slow, and trees do not notice at first. Later, bent trunks and cracked roads tell the tale. Instruments had already drawn that curve in thin lines. Lava deltas build where hot rock meets the sea and stays. New ground extends by small collapses and quick rebuilds. Steam travels in sheets across the platform. When the edge fails, waves swallow a section and the line steps back. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Along arcs, volcanoes space themselves at a distance that repeats. The slab dips at a certain angle and the front sets that width. Water from the slab lowers melting points above. Magmas rise in small batches and blend on the way. Some arcs wear snow and fur. Others cut jungles with ash. Style changes with crust and water and speed. A wet, thick crust favors sticky magmas and tall cones. A dry, thin crust favors fluid basalt and lower shapes. Back arc basins open behind the line when extension wins. Small ridges pull the floor apart and grow new crust. Microplates spin in tight circles to fit the strain. Vents build cones that few will see. On islands, vents can march in a row across a slope. The line points to stress that split the flank. Each vent builds a neat cone and a short flow. Together, they look like beads on a string from the air. Rift zones let pressure choose long paths. Cracks open in steps that line up with older scars. Fountains follow the freshest break and then settle. When the day ends, the map shows a branch with a red outline. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Beneath the quiet ground, crystals sort themselves by weight. Olivine and pyroxene fall in slow rain through melt. Plagioclase sometimes floats in lower density magma. The chamber learns to layer like a patient jar of sand. Zircon holds tiny clocks inside its grains. Uranium decays to lead at a known rate. A lab reads the ratios and writes a date. These pieces survive heat that erases softer records. Volcanic glass captures bubbles that hold old air. Trapped gases show what the atmosphere was on the day of cooling. Ice cores and glass layers compare notes across centuries. The match confirms the pace of change. Tephra layers serve as bookmarks in bogs and lakes. A white band with sharp shards marks one eruption. A grey band with pumice marks another. Cores align places that never met by these thin pages. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. A Laha channel cuts across farms with a new floor. Boulders raft in thick mud and grind the banks. Bridges catch logs and then fail. Afterward, the valley is lower, straighter and quiet. Fresh silt dries and cracks in neat polygons. Engineers build sabot dams to break heavy flows. The steps slow water and trap blocks. Channels widen and accept the next season with fewer surprises. Signs show where to stand and where to leave. Ashfall turns day to grey by slow degrees. Roofs take weight one sheet at a time. Gutter lines clog and street corners puddle. Crews move in grids and push the blanket to trucks. Weeks later, weeds break through and claim the pile. At night, glowing avalanches step from a dome and run. The paths are fixed by gullies cut last year. Stop lines on maps match the foot of older deposits. People sleep uphill of those lines and wake to the same view. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Gas monitoring tells stories the eye does not see. Carbon dioxide rises first when magma degasses at depth. Sulfur dioxide jumps when gas finds surface paths. Ratios shift as pathways change. Instruments report numbers while the mountain says little. Tilt meters feel swelling long before a visitor does. A slope leans by small angles that a coin under a table leg could mimic. GPS stations separate by a few millimeters and hold that news. Together, these signals weigh magma without seeing it. Infrasound hears what wind hides. Low waves carry from vents and rockfalls. Patterns shift when a fountain starts or a dome cracks. Arrays point to the source the way ears do in a room. Drones map fracture fields and look into craters. They carry small gas cells and return images with depth. Flights run along repeat tracks and reveal changes. Pilots stand far away and read the day with calm hands. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Iceland writes chapters where a ridge meets a plume. Fissures open on snow, and steam builds walls of white. Basalt runs under northern light and draws slow lines. Rivers freeze, thaw, and carry glass downstream. Hawaii writes patience in broad strokes. Lakes rise and fall within craters on a long cycle. Rifts break and heal, and coasts advance by deltas. The mountain does not need hurry to reach the sea. Indonesia writes tall, quick pages over deep trenches. Wet magma builds steep cones that keep ice and cloud. Valleys remember hot flows and mud years apart. Forests return between notes and hide the older lines. Italy writes lessons close to towns. People farm rich slopes and watch the summit. Networks measure tilt and gasp in tiny steps. Sirens, maps, and drills turn memory into reflex. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. In thin air, cones hold snow and write wind shadows. Rime grows on windward rails and breaks at noon. Frost wedges blocks that tumble onto talus. Glaciers carve horns from old craters and leave blue ponds. Under ice sheets, eruptions melt roofs and raise floods. Jökullaps cut channels in hours and toss house-sized blocks. The water drops, and a braided plain remains. Black stripes on white mark the path from above. Under lakes, heat builds small chimneys of carbonate. Bubbles stitch columns as they climb and freeze a frame. Microbial mats coat the towers in soft layers. Divers move slowly and leave no silt. On coasts, waves polish new lava into black sand. The beach warms early and cools late. Turtle tracks cross dawn lines and vanish by noon. Grains mix with older quartz and turn the color to brown. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Large igneous provinces speak in flood basalts that span states. Flows hundreds of kilometers long fill valleys and make stairs. Dikes feed sheet after sheet from far fissures. Later rivers carve gorges that cut the stack like a cake. Hotspot trails record plate speed in islands and seamounts. Ages increase along the line like addresses on a street. Bend angles record changes in drift. A kink tells when a plate chose a new path. Kimberlite pipes tell of fast, deep trips. Mantle xenoliths show green crystals and coarse textures. Diamonds sit in blue ground until weather frees them. Streams hide them in heavy bars, quiet and bright. Calcium carbonate tufa grows near volcanic springs. Towers rise where degassing water loses hold on minerals. Birds nest on ledges, and brine flies swarm below. The lake level falls and leaves the forest of stone dry. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Geothermal fields make cities comfortable without flames. Steam turns turbines and returns as warm water. The loop goes back underground to keep pressure. Streets clear of snow in winter by pipes under stone. Pumice quarries look pale and light. Blocks weigh less than water and float in tanks. Bricks made from pumice hold heat and silence. Gardens use the stone to keep roots aired and wet. Pozzolan from ash strengthens concrete that meets the sea. Romans learned this mix and built long harbours. Modern docks use cousins of that powder. The bond stands against salt and time. Basalt fibre draws into strong, light strands. Rebar made from it resists rust near coasts. Lava stone stores heat in ovens and releases it slow. Kitchens and kilns borrow from old flows. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. At sunset, a plume turns copper and then grey. Wind carries a thin veil over ridges and lakes. Shadows draw long lines across scoria fields. Coyotes move along new roads and pause at warm culverts. After dark, a glow at the summit pulses in small breaths. People watch from safe pullouts and say little. The mountain continues its work in steady minutes. Stars keep their places while heat finds its path. We have walked rims and flats, halls and tubes, arcs and rifts. We saw rivers of rock, fast clouds, and slow clocks inside zircon. We watched towns plan around maps that remember water and mud. The ground did its work without asking for a witness. If sleep finds you now, let the thought remain plain. Volcanoes build more than they break. When you return, we will cross older provinces, climb walls of columns, and read layers in lake cores that store thin grey pages. The story will wait in the same calm voice. A summit crater looks calm after weather clears. Fumaroles paint pale lines on rock and drift thin vapor. Cracks widen and close by small amounts each day. Instruments keep quiet watch and write the changes in tidy numbers. A fault scarp crosses a young lava plain in a straight step. One side slid a meter and left a fresh face. Rain darkens the ledge and marks the new level. Later lichens will erase the contrast and blend the tone. Down a flank, a rift zone shows its habit. Parallel fractures run for kilometers across old flows. Some hold low spatter walls from last season. Others stay empty and wait for pressure they cannot guess. Pahoho skins cool to smooth plates that tip at the edges. Their undersides hold hollow molds of old gas bubbles. In shadows, small ferns use those pockets well. Roots explore where the heat has already moved on. An R field ends in a rough front of sharp blocks. The edge looks frozen mid-movement, like a crowd pausing. Lizards choose warm gaps and rest with measured patience. At night, the rocks release stored heat in slow, even drafts. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. A stratocones stands beside a larger vent like a child. It built by short arcs of glowing drops that stuck and stacked. The throat remains narrow and crusted red. When rain falls, steam rises with a sound like low wind. Hornitos rise where gas punches through a crusted flow. They crackle while they grow, then fall silent and cool. Their thin walls open like paper and reveal a small pipe. The pipe now holds a calm drip of mineral water. A tree mold preserves a trunk in negative inside basalt. Lava cooled around living wood and kept the space. Later, the trunk burned away and left a vertical tube. Seeds collect there and start another story in shade. Rootless cones dot wide plains where water met lava. Steam explosions through cinders and made tiny rings. The cones cluster near old channels and break lines into beads. Maps read them as notes on a quiet staff. On an older shield, terraces wrap the mountain in steps. Each bench marks a former shoreline or lake level. Coral sits high where the island rose after weight moved. The fossils keep simple proof of long, slow lift. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. At a submarine ridge, the crest splits into small vents. Hydrothermal chimneys build dark towers grain by grain. Fluids mix with seawater and drop metal sulfides in place. The tower grows, collapses, and starts again nearby. White smokers carry cooler fluids rich in silica. They decorate rocks with soft spires and flanges. Bacteria coat surfaces and form thin mats. Shrimp gather in crowds and sweep antennae in steady rhythm. Mounds of pillow basalt stretch along the axis like links, each lobe chilled with a thin skin and inflated gently. A crack opened, and the next lobe emerged and settled. The pile reads like careful handwriting on the floor. Farther off axis, lava dikes freeze in vertical sheets. Later earthquakes open them as seawater pathways. Basalt alters to green rock along those seams. The color marks circulation that ended long ago. Sediment blankets the flanks and thickens with distance. Thin ash layers hide inside that blanket like pale lines. A core recovers them with neat cylinders. Lab work turns the colors into times and events. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. On land, a dome field fills a caldera floor with mounds. Each dome extruded slowly and shed hot blocks. Talus aprons ring the bases in tidy belts. A new lobe swells and then rests without leaving home. A coulee forms when sticky lava flows a short distance. It freezes with levees and a modest toe. The surface crack network looks like dried mud. Patterns give clues to motion that ended quietly. Block and ash flows track steep gullies from a collapsing dome. The mix is coarse, grey, and hot enough to weld. It spreads a fan at the mouth and stops with a clean edge. Charred branches rest inside like soft charcoal. Ash aggregates into larger clumps in wet plumes. Balls fall faster and make pits on fine surfaces. A field of pockmarks tells of moisture up high. The story is brief and precise in its marks. Light pumice rafts away from coastal vents with the wind. It hosts small crabs and algae during the trip. Weeks later, it lands on another shore and breaks apart. The fragments join gardens and stay. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. A stratocone keeps layers of lava and tephra in steep order. Dikes cut the pile and freeze as dark ribs. When part of a flank fails, a horseshoe scar remains. Debris fans run far and carry blocks the size of houses. Sector collapses leave ridges that aim away from the gap. Rivers adjust to the new floor and carve fresh paths. Lakes collect behind landslide dams and find outlets later. The landscape accepts the new geometry and continues. Ash clouds rise as columns that spread as umbrella tops. Wind writes the thin plume into a long band. Planes avoid the corridor with careful routes. Days later, sunsets carry deeper reds and violets. A scoria cone opens a small window into gas-rich melt. Bombs land hot and spin to round shapes. The rim rings the crater with rust and black glass. A shallow lava pond sometimes appears and then drains. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Under a glacier, a melt cave grows along a warm line. Roofs drip at steady rates and polish blue walls. Channels carry black sand from vents upstream. The cave closes in winter and opens again next season. Jökulhlaups drain subglacial lakes in hours. Water lifts ice, finds a gate, and rushes out. Boulders roll like slow drums across the plain. When the level drops, braided channels spread thin and quiet. Tindars mark fissure eruptions under ice as low ridges. Pillow piles form first, then hyaloclastite adds bulk. If the roof breaks, a flat-topped edifice grows. The land remembers the roof long after the ice leaves. Snow pits near a cone show layers like pages. Storms, dust and ash write stripes through the winter. A dark band marks one clear eruption day. Later, melt turns that band into a thin crust. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. In a mile field, rings dot a plain like quiet ponds. Each ring marks a vent where water met fire. The rims tilt outward and display graded beds. Fish and reeds now hide the story under calm reflections. An ignimbrite plateau holds miles of welded tuff. Cooling joints draw hexagons across vertical faces. Columns break with ringing notes under a light hammer. Trails zigzag the talus with patient switchbacks. Rhyolite domes weather into smooth, pale hills. Flow bands curve like lines in cut wood. Jasper and obsidian nest in the same country. Tools once left these hills to distant villages. Desert varnish paints basalts with thin manganese skins. Petroglyphs carve through the dark to show bright lines. Images are careful and spare. Hoofprints and spirals share space with hands. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Remote sensing sees what boots cannot reach. INSAR tracks ground motion from orbit with paired images. Colored fringes bloom where a slope swells or sinks. The pattern draws a map of pressure breath. Thermal cameras find hotspots under cool air. Fumaroles pop as white marks on grey stone. Lines show shallow conduits and vents. Flights repeat the path to see change and confirm trends. Gas ratios tell paths from source to sky. Carbon dioxide leads deeper processes. Sulfur dioxide marks shallower ones. Hydrogen fluoride whispers where glass is forming fast. Instruments read the mix and refine the guess. Seismic swarms rise in depth and then climb. Frequencies shift from brittle pops to long tones. Rock breaks a little and then flows a little. The stack of traces plots a route too dark for lights. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. A hot spring terrace grows stair steps of travertine. Water loses carbon dioxide and drops calcite in thin sheets. Pools rim themselves and overflow to the next. Colors change with microbes that prefer certain heat. Siliceous sinter builds white aprons near cooler vents. Geyserite knits nodules around splash zones. Splash marks show throw distance and wind. Old surfaces keep rings like growth lines. Mud pots plop in slow pulses where acid wins. Clay replaces rock grain by grain. Bubbles thump and burst and rims slump. In dry months, the skin cracks and remembers circles. Fumarole fields hiss softly under snow. Hoarfrost outlines warm cracks in silver lines. Birds perch on safe rocks and preen. The air smells sharp and brief. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Far offshore, an island chain steps by age along a line. Young cones smoke at one end, old guyos sink at the other. Coral keeps pace until depth defeats light. The trail records plate speed with simple numbers. At a trench, a four-arc basin traps sediments in a long bowl. Accretionary prisms stack slices of wet crust. Melange mixes blocks in soft matrix. The wedge thickens and sheds debris during quakes. Four-arc springs carry serpentinization chemistry to the surface. Fluids run high in pH and low in dissolved carbon. Carbonate towers form like delicate trees. The garden thrives without sunlight or rain. Back on a plain, a single cinder cone interrupts a pasture. Kids sled the slope in winter on plastic sheets. The crater holds snow longer than fields nearby. A small pond green with reeds marks spring below. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Evening returns, and a plume blushes in low sun. Shadows lengthen across older flows and fine skylights. A steam line thins and then vanishes as dew forms. Coyotes track warm culverts and cross without noise. Night gathers, and the summit glow pulses like a heartbeat. The lake skin breaks, heals, and breaks again. Stars keep simple positions above an old rim. Roads curve gently away and carry quiet travelers home. If you feel sleep near, the route will be easy to find again. We have moved through rims and ridges, domes and plains, ice and sea. Ahead lie deeper chambers, tall columns, and fields that speak in long layers. The story will wait in the same calm voice. A rift valley begins with quiet stretch. Crust thins, faults step down, and long floors sink by small increments. Lakes gather in the low places and trade water with the sky. Far below, warm rock rises and begins to melt. In East Africa, cliffs face each other across wide flats. Cinder cones and small shields dot the floor. Hot springs stain the margins with white and orange. The line runs north into the sea and south into high ground. Basalt there is hot and fluid. It fills cracks, builds low ramps, and cools to black skin. Farther along the rift, thicker magma rises in pockets. Domes lift slowly and split as pressure wins a vote. When plates separate enough, the valley can invite the ocean. A narrow seaway advances, salt air arrives, and reefs test the new coast. The old continent now keeps two names with a neat strip between them. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. On tall cones, eruption styles change with pressure and gas. Hawaiian fountains rise from thin basalt and fall as glowing rain. Strombolian bursts pop from pockets and throw arcs that spin. Vulcanian shots break plugs and send blocks a short way. Plinian columns lift ash to sky heights and write long bands on maps. A Plinian day begins with a tight column that grows an umbrella top. Ash rides wind for hours and falls in thinning sheets. The column weakens, parts collapse, and fast, hot currents race down valleys. Later, welded tuff cools into hard stone that rings under a boot. Ash particles are glass and crystal fragments. They scratch engines and lungs and hold static. Streets grow slick when wet, and roofs need quick hands. Weeks later, rain cleans the air and gardens accept the mineral gift. Pumice floats because it keeps bubbles. Rafts drift for months and land on far shores. Seeds find purchase. Small crabs hide in holes. What felt like waste becomes a slow boat for life. Ignimbrites keep the memory of speed and heat. Surfaces carry dune-like waves, and blocks align with flow. At cliffs, cooling joints draw tidy patterns. A road cut can read like a single long sentence from a loud hour. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Under ice and snow, volcanoes write with steam. Meltwater finds paths and freezes into blue pillars. Warm roofs collapse and open skylights that glow at night. When floods break out, they leave plains braided with black sand. In island arcs, water that rode the slab lowers melting points above. Magma carries that story to the surface. Andesite and dacite build steep flanks and stubborn domes. Snow sits near the top, while rain feeds forests below. Arc spacing from the trench tells a simple geometry. Steeper slabs pull the line closer. Shallow slabs push it back. The chemistry shifts with speed and temperature. The map that we see reflects a map we cannot. Back arc basins open when extension wins behind an arc. Small ridges rise, pillows stack, and black smokers bloom. Microplates pivot to fit the strain. The sea hides the work under calm surfaces. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Some of the largest stories spread wide and low. Flood basalts pour from long fissures and fill whole regions. Sheets stack, cool, and crack into stairs. Rivers later carve canyons that slice the stack into clean faces. These provinces link to quiet changes and loud ones. They vent much gas, shade the ground, and stir climate. Forests shift ranges. Seas trade warmth with air. Life adapts in steps that look smooth only from far away. Closer, a single basalt sheet tells of a steady night. Ropey skins fold where the front slowed. Hollow toes preserve the shape of motion. A skylight opens to a drain tube and shows a floor swept clean. Between sheets, soils form. Grasses take hold first, then shrubs, then trees that tolerate thin water. Roots find joints and widen them by slow hinge. A field mouse digs and reuses a burrow as seasons pass. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Inside the crust, magma systems act like slow markets. Dikes carry melt upward along the easiest lines. Sills spread between layers and weight. Crystals settle in quiet pockets by density and shape. Gas finds paths and changes the plan. Zoning in crystals records the route. A rim grows in one chemistry, a core in another. A lab reads the rings like a diary. Timescales can be days or thousands of years, depending on the chamber's mood. Zircon grains hold small clocks. They survive heat that erases softer records. Uranium decays to lead at a known pace. Ratios write dates that anchor older layers in time. Tephra layers tie distant places with thin pages. A glass-rich band in a lake core matches a band in ice. People align calendars across continents with these signatures. A quiet bog becomes a library. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Hazards are managed with maps and practice. Lahar lines follow riverbeds. Arrows point to high ground. Shelters sit on ridges with short paths. Schools walk the routes until they need no guidance. Gas fields are flagged and fenced. Carbon dioxide pools in hollows heavier than air. Meters watch the breeze and the soil. Cattle trails shift a little and avoid the low spots. Water and ash ask for filters and patience. Crews clear drains before rain. Roofs are brushed in sections. Weight is treated like math. Engines wear masks in dusty periods and rest when storms pass. Monitoring is a team of instruments. Seismometers hear pops and long tones. Tilt meters and GPS feel swelling and lean. Gas sensors read ratios that mark depth and pathways. Satellites compare images and draw color fringes where the ground moves. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Geothermal fields borrow heat and return water. Wells bring steam to turbines and warmth to homes. Brine cools and sinks back to depth. The loop balances pressure and runs for decades. In towns near such fields, streets melt snow from below. Greenhouses hold steady nights. Pools steam under cold stars. Heat becomes quiet comfort rather than drama. Basalt gives industry strong tools. Fibers draw into rebar that resists rust in salt air. Pumice bricks keep rooms light and warm. Pozzolans from ash strengthen concrete near coasts. Obsidian made sharp edges when metal was rare. Flakes hold curves thinner than hair and still cut clean. Quarries sat on old flows with glassy faces. Trails carried points to far markets. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Volcanoes write into culture in quieter ways. Stories tell of mountains that sleep and wake. Festivals mark harvests grown on rich ash soils. Songs learn the wind that carries a thin plume. Names carry the memory of water and fire. Archaeology reads the same ground with tools. A buried street appears under meters of pumice, still neat. Bread loaves carbonized in ovens hold their shape. Footprints cross ash on a lake margin and stop at water. Tree rings record hard years after high eruptions. Narrow bands align across valleys and countries. Ice holds bubbles that trap past air. Together, they show when skies dimmed and how long it took to clear. Astronomy adds its own notes. Twilight after large eruptions glows deeper and longer. Painters caught those colors without naming the cause. Science later linked brushstrokes to sulfur in high air. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Other worlds write their own volcanic chapters. Mars built broad shields with gentle slopes. Olympus Mons rises taller than any mountain on Earth because gravity is lower and plates do not slide. Long lava flows run like roads across plains. Venus appears quiet today under a heavy sky, yet volcanoes cover much of its face. Some say a broad resurfacing happened in episodes. Domes and fields look young in places. The planet keeps its heat under a thick blanket. Io draws energy from tides. Jupiter's pull kneads its interior and keeps it molten in parts. Plumes rise hundreds of kilometers from vents and fall back as fine frost. The surface resets in bright patches again and again. Our moon shows dark seas that are not seas. Basalt filled low basins after big impacts. The far side stayed high and rough. Regolith holds glass beads that tell of fire in a silent place. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. In the cold outer system, ice can act like rock. Enceladus vents water vapor and grains from tiger stripes near its pole. A warm ocean likely sits under ice. The jets coat nearby rings and snow onto the surface. Triton shows frozen plains cut by dark fans. Nitrogen or methane may act like cryogases there. Weak sunlight still drives small winds. The place is quiet and strange, yet the physics is familiar. Back on Earth, small vents open in fields that feel ordinary. A farmer wakes to find new cinders in a pasture. Fences step around fresh rock. The town adds a story to its map and continues. Tour guides learn to speak in clear lines. Stay on the path. Do not step on thin crust. Read the wind before you choose a viewpoint. The day ends with warm hands and no alarms. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. A lava tube becomes a home for bats and cool air. Drips build thin stalactites of salt and mineral. Roots hang from the roof where trees above chase water. Footsteps sound soft and even on sand that never sees sun. A caldera floor hosts lakes that change color with season and gas. Green means algae, white means suspended clay, blue means depth and clear sky. Shorelines shift by inches each week. Birds learn the new edges first. Rhyolite domes weather to smooth pale hills. Bands curve like wood grain frozen in stone. Obsidian and jasper scatter on slopes. People once walked here for edges and beauty. Columnar joints form tidy walls along coasts. Surf booms in hexagon halls. At low tide, pools hold starfish and anemones. At high tide, spray draws short rainbows. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. A trench marks where an ocean plate bends and dives. Quakes write sharp notes along that curve. Slow slip sometimes slides silently for weeks. Mud cores bring back microfossils that date old motions. Forearc springs bring alkaline fluids to the surface. Carbonate towers rise in quiet groves. Bacteria build soft mats that cling to ridges. The chemistry writes a garden under grey cloud. Behind an arc, a small basin opens. New crust forms under recent ash. Black smokers line a fresh ridge. Animals gather by chemistry instead of light and practice patience. On land, a single cinder cone in pasture stays young and neat. School classes climb the rim and look inside. The crater holds snow longer than fields around it. A pond at the base writes a circle of reeds. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Evening brings calm to a rim road. Fumaroles lift threads that turn gold and then clear. A thin plume drifts and smears into the first stars. Coyotes cross warm culverts and leave clean tracks. Night settles, and a crater lake draws red seams that open and heal. The glow breathes in small pulses. People in safe pullouts watch without many words. The mountain keeps even minutes. We have walked rifts and arcs, tubes and domes, ice roofs and sea floors. We traced gas ratios and crystal rings, street drills and terrace pools. The ground built more than it broke, and it did so in steady lines. If your eyes begin to close, the route will be easy to find again. Ahead lie older provinces, long stair-step canyons, and lake cores that store thin grey pages. The story will wait in the same calm voice. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. A broad plateau tells of many nights of flow. Thin sheets stacked, cooled, and cracked into tidy stairs. Valleys later cut across those steps and revealed the layers. Each layer holds a date written in crystals and glass. A canyon wall shows columns that run from rim to river. Joints formed as thick lava shrank in even directions. The shapes meet at near equal angles and feel precise. Sunlight falls between the pipes and makes regular shadows. A caldera lake fills a ring where the ground had sunk. Shorelines mark past levels in grey and brown bands. Springs tint coves with faint blue or iron red. A boat's wake writes brief lines that vanish in minutes. On a windy day, an ash plain lifts and moves again. Dunes creep a little and smooth their faces. Grasses hold where roots find moisture under a crust. The field keeps old waves frozen on quiet mornings. A road crosses scoria and runs straight to a rim. The crater holds a shallow bowl with dark sand. Larks nest on the slope where steps are small. When it rains, the bowl becomes a temporary pool. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. In a museum drawer, obsidian points lie side by side. Edges curl as thin as onion skin. The glass cooled so quickly crystals had no time. Trade carried these quiet knives far from the source. In a lab, a thin section shines under polarized light. Minerals turn colors as the stage rotates. Plagioclase shows zebra bands. Olivine keeps soft green. The slice reveals a slow crowd of crystals inside frozen motion. A gas sample clicks through a small sensor. Carbon dioxide rises, sulfur dioxide jumps, ratios shift. The pattern hints at depth and plumbing. Numbers move while the mountain stays still to our eyes. A tilt meter shows a curve that grew overnight. One leg of the tripod rose by a hair's breadth. The signal is small and honest. Maps collect these motions until they form a shape. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. At a trench, an ocean plate bends and dives. Quakes tap along the line like careful Morse. Slow slip slides for weeks without a sound. Uplift and subsidence parcel inches across coasts. Above, an arc draws cones at a repeating distance. Water in the slab lowers melting points and starts pockets. Magmas rise, stall, mix, and sometimes reach the air. The chain mirrors the hidden slope below. Behind the arc, extension opens a small basin. New crust forms where older crust splits. Pillows build on pillows in silent dark. Vents host animals that live by chemistry, not light. On a hotspot trail, ages increase along a line. The youngest island smokes. Old seamounts sink below waves. Coral keeps pace until depth steals light. The kink in the trail records a change in drift. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. A shield volcano speaks in low, steady tones. Basalt pours in long sheets that cool to rope and clinker. Rifts open like chapter breaks and then close. Coasts advance by deltas that fail and reform. A stratocone prefers pulses. Domes grow and fall. Ash columns rise and weaken. Lahars write fast lines through valleys during heavy rain. Forests return between notes and hide old scars. A continental rift stretches a floor into steps. Faults drop blocks and make lakes in strings. Basalt fills cracks and builds low ramps. Far ahead, a narrow sea will test a new coast. A supersized caldera writes deep pages few will see form. A chamber withdraws, roofs fail in broad blocks, and a ring appears. Later, geysers and fumaroles take the quiet shift. The land keeps heat close for a long time. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Under ice, eruptions melt roofs and raise floods. Water lifts glaciers, finds gates, and rushes out. Plains of braided sand spread in hours. Black lines across white show the route from the air. Under lakes, vents feed chimneys of carbonate. Bubbles stitch columns as they climb and freeze frames. Microbial mats coat pale towers. Divers move slowly to keep the water clear. Undersea, ridges run like seams between basins. New crust forms as pillows and sheets without applause. Hydrothermal vents build towers that grow and topple. The system breathes in minerals rather than air. Far from ridges, seamounts rise and sleep. Their flat tops tell of waves that once cut them. Guyos drift with plates and carry old reefs. Currents wrap them and gather life along edges. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. In towns on rich slopes, plans are quiet and thorough. Routes to high ground are short and known. Roofs are built with angles that shed ash. Drains are cleared before the rain returns. Sirens do less work when drills do more. Schools walk once each season and keep time. Radios carry simple phrases in 2 languages. A good day ends without an emergency. Farmers read soil like a ledger. Young ash holds water and keeps nutrients. Vines, coffee and grains each choose their height. Rows follow contours that resist sudden water. Geothermal lines bring heat without flame. Pipes share warmth with homes and pools. Brine returns to depth to balance pressure. Winter streets stay clear without salt or noise. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. A Laha path in satellite images looks pale and new. Boulders sit where the water left them. Banks are scalloped and straightened at once. Bridges downstream were rebuilt with taller spans. An ash cloud corridor stays empty of aircraft. Pilots skirt the band by wide margins. Engines do not forgive glass dust. Flight paths adjust until the sky clears. A hazard map shows colors that match risk and time. Red marks fast flows. Orange marks Laha plains. Yellow notes ash where roofs matter. The legend reads like calm instructions. Guides teach visitors to stand at correct distances. Trails avoid thin crusts and gas-rich swales. Boards explain colors and smells that warn. The day ends with photos and steady feet. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. In archives, diaries note sunsets after high eruptions. Sky glowed deeper for months at dusk. Painters mixed strange violets and copper reds. Science later tied those tones to aerosols in high air. Rings in trees narrowed in certain years. Lines align across valleys and seas. Ice cores kept bubbles from those winters. Together they tell when the sunlight softened. Archaeology uncovers streets under pumice. Pots and bread loaves keep their shapes in black. Doorways open to ash instead of courtyards. Layers above show the slow return of daily noise. Stories keep mountains awake in memory. Names recall water that ran hot and stones that sang. Festivals thank soils that hold rain. Songs learn the wind that carries a thin plume. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Other worlds widen the idea. Mars built shields that dwarf ours. Plates that do not slide, so one hotspot drew a giant. Olympus Mons rises calm and broad because gravity is gentle. Venus hides under heavy cloud. Volcanoes cover much of its face, and heat lingers. Domes and fields look young in places. The planet wears a thick blanket that keeps secrets. Io blazes with tidal fire. Jupiter's pull kneads the moon and feeds plumes. Frost falls back and resets the colors. The surface changes often and fast. Our moon shows dark maria that are not seas. Basalt filled basins after impacts. Glass beads in soil tell of ancient fire. The far side stayed high and rough. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Far in the cold, ice behaves like rock. Enceladus vents water vapor through striped faults. A likely ocean sits under the lid. Jets coat nearby rings and snow the surface. Triton shows plains and dark fans on pale ground. Thin air still moves dust under weak sun. Chemistry plays at low temperatures. The scene is quiet and exact. Back home, a farmer wakes to find cinders in a pasture. A new cone rose overnight along an old line. Fences step around fresh rock. The map gains a small circle and keeps going. At dusk, a summit glow pulses and fades. The lake skin breaks and heals, then breaks again. Stars hold their places above an old rim. Roads curve home with even speed. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Deep under quiet hills, melt gathers in pockets that connect by thin paths. Some paths open, others seal, and pressure redistributes. Crystals grow along cooler walls and fall when they become heavy. The liquid that remains changes as ingredients leave and new ones enter. A basaltic melt begins rich in iron and magnesium. As it cools, olivine and pyroxene grow first and take those elements. The liquid shifts towards silica and sodium. If it pauses in a chamber, layering can form that looks like a patient recipe. Water lowers the melting point and changes behavior. In wet magmas, bubbles form earlier and expand faster. Viscosity rises, and gas cannot escape easily. The result is stickier lava and more explosive styles near the surface. Chlorine and fluorine ride with water in small amounts. They form acids in steam and etch new minerals on cooling walls. Their signatures help trace the path of gas through rock. Monitors watch those signals like quiet handwriting. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. The carbon silicate cycle runs on long time. Volcanoes deliver carbon dioxide to air and water. Weathering of silicate rocks draws it down again and carries it to the sea. Carbon locks into shells and sediments and returns below with a slab. Basalt weathers faster than granite in most climates. Fresh lava drinks carbonic acid and releases calcium and magnesium. Rivers carry the products to the ocean. Over ages, this exchange keeps temperatures in a workable range. Ash can fertilize wide areas after it settles. It brings potassium, phosphorus, and trace iron to poor soils. Forests recover on layers that seem harsh at first. Crops take hold where rainfall is steady and frost is rare. A distant ocean can feel an eruption by dust alone. Iron-rich ash lands on blue water and starts a quiet bloom. Plankton multiply and draw carbon downward in sinking snow. The signal shows in satellite color and then fades. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Carbon can be stored in basalt by design. Water with dissolved carbon dioxide is injected into fractured rock. Minerals form that lock carbon in solid form within years. Wells monitor pressure and chemistry to keep the loop safe. Geothermal reservoirs balance heat and water with care. Rock frames the system. Fractures carry the flow. Re-injection replaces what is taken to hold pressure stable. Good fields run for decades without losing their voice. In pumice plains, succession follows a simple script. Lichens mark first dots and hold dew. Moss arrives and traps dust. Grasses and shrubs take root when pockets hold. Birds bring seeds that find shade at last. Lava tubes host their own small weather. Cool air sinks to lower sections and stays. Skins of salt shine where vapor meets rock. Roots search through ceilings and find drops where none seem likely. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. At night, a quiet cone vents tiny pulses of light. A gas slug rises and pops like a measured clock. The sound carries on low air and then stops. The same beat returns with calm regularity. A dome makes its own hazards by slow growth. Hot blocks roll down gullies without warning. Gas escapes through cracks and lifts ash in short breaths. Maps mark runouts so trails can keep a safe distance. Rain transforms loose ash into quick water. Lahars start high and move like thick rivers. Bridges collect logs and then fail. Afterward, the valley is lower and wider and strangely neat. Coasts built by lava need revisions. Deltas grow in steps and then collapse. New platforms form and then retreat. The shoreline is a sketch that accepts edits from waves and heat. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Old flows record the planet's magnetic field. Iron grains align with the direction they cooled in. Seafloor stripes match across ridges and prove spreading. On land, flows stack with alternating signs that show reversals. Paleomagnetism sets dates when paired with other clocks. A layer's signature ties it to a known reversal. Zircon ages refine the window. Together they fix events to calendars we can trust. A tephra layer is a time card for many places at once. The same glass shards appear in lakes hundreds of kilometers apart. Geochemistry matches them like a fingerprint. Cores align across continents on thin signals. Lake mud keeps pages that catch each quiet fall. Summer and winter set pairs of dark and light. A single ash band reads as a straight line across the core. Counting between lines gives years as simple numbers. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Under glaciers, heat melts roofs and draws floods. Water lifts ice and cuts gates under pressure. Jökullaups spread braided plains in hours. When the level drops, lines remain clean as if drawn. Under seas, ridge axes build pillows with no audience. Hydrothermal vents run black with metal-rich fluids. Chimneys grow, fall, and regrow. Animals gather that live by chemistry and show patient schedules. Under lakes, carbonates build towers where bubbles climb. Microbes knit soft coats on pale frames. Divers move slowly so silt stays quiet. The story is fragile and clear. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Risk communication works best when it sounds ordinary. Maps use clear colors and few words. Drills repeat until steps become memory. Leaders speak short sentences and leave room for questions. Sirens do less when routes are known by habit. Schools walk to high ground at least once a season. Families keep masks and goggles for ash on a shelf. Radios test during calm weather, not only in storms. Recovery plans begin before the event. Bulldozers know where to push heavy mud. Crews know which drains clog first. Hospitals have filters ready for dusty air. The town goes quiet and then returns in tidy stages. Farmland recovers in months to years. Fields are scraped or ploughed depending on thickness. Ash mixed into soil holds water for later seasons. Orchards accept pruning where branches carried weight and bent. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Volcanic glass hydrates over time. Water diffuses inward and changes the shine. Measuring that depth can hint at age. The method works best when the climate has held steady. Tough weathers into soft slopes with scattered blocks. Plants take early positions along minor shade. Trails cross where the crust is firm. Prints hold after a light rain and then fade. Rhyolite domes fracture into smooth plates along flow bands. Joints curve and meet like lines in wood. Ice and plant roots widen cracks by small steps. Hills soften into pale rounds across decades. Dike swarms form patterns that reveal old stress. On satellite images, the bands run straight for many kilometers. Valleys align along the same direction. Maps read lines the eye might miss at ground level. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Hot spring terraces grow in measured steps. Water loses carbon dioxide and drops calcite in thin films. Pools rim themselves and overflow to the next. Microbes paint the stair edges in careful colors. Silica aprons form where water cools and vents slow. Geyserite builds nodules around splash zones. Throw marks show wind and height from last season. Repeat photos tell small changes that add up. Mud pots thump where acid wins the contest. Clay replaces grains and holds bubbles. Rims slump and rebuild. In dry months, the skin cracks into neat polygons. Fumaroles hiss under snow in long winters. Hoarfrost outlines warm seams in bright white. Birds use safe perches and avoid the steam. The smell warns before instruments do. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. A trench collects sediments scraped from a diving plate. Accretionary wedges stack slices of wet rock. Melange mixes blocks in softer paste. Quakes tighten and relax the pile again and again. Forearc springs rise through ultramafic rocks and carry odd chemistry. Fluids run high in pH and low in dissolved carbon. Carbonate towers grow like delicate trees. Life thrives without sun in pale groves. Behind an arc extension opens a basin with young crust. Black smokers line fresh ridges and feed quiet crowds. Pillow lavas build smooth mounds in clean rows. The sea hides the workshop under ordinary waves. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. On other worlds, rules rhyme but settings change. Mars hosts shields that dwarf anything here. Without plates, one hotspot built a giant calmly. Thin air and low gravity lengthen flows across plains. Venus keeps heat under thick cloud. Radar shows domes, fields, and channels that look young. The atmosphere holds sulfur compounds that would bite here. The planet's slow spin and tight blanket make familiar physics feel new. Io glows with tidal stress. Jupiter needs it and powers fountains that rise far. Frost falls and resets colors in short cycles. The timetable is fast and constant. Our moon records quiet fire long past. Basalts filled basins and made dark Maria. Glass spherules hide in regolith like small stars. The far side stayed high and rough and silent. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. A village under a cone keeps simple habits. Roofs are pitched for ash and strong under snow. Water tanks have filters ready for grit. Shelters sit on ridges with quick paths. Guides teach visitors clear lines. Stay on marked ground. Do not cross steaming crust. Read wind before picking a view. The best days end without alarms. At dusk, a summit glow appears like a heartbeat. A bubble breaks and draws a short arc of light. The lake heals its skin and waits for the next rise. Stars keep their positions above the rim. We have walked through chemistry and time, soil and snow, maps and habits. The ground has built more than it broke and did it in steady notes. If your eyes begin to close, the route will be easy to find again. The story will wait here with the same calm voice. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. A quiet morning holds thin steam above warm ground. Fumaroles draw pale lines along a ridge and wet rock with tiny drops. On the slope below, old flows show two textures side by side. One keeps ropey skins that folded while still soft. The other breaks to clinker where motion tore the front apart. Across a valley, a stack of flows steps like low stairs. Each ledge ends in a clean cliff that shows a page of black stone. Between pages, a pale band marks soil that formed in a long pause. Roots once worked there and left a smooth seam in the record. The stack tells a calm story of many nights. A lava tube begins in darkness and widens to a hall. skylights open where the roof failed and let ferns take rooms. On the floor, ripples and frozen drips still point downhill. A bat rustles once and settles again. Outside, the tube's low ridge runs through scrub like a quiet clue. Downslope, a river has cut through basalt and found columns. The wall looks like pipes set close with perfect patience. Water turns at their bases and throws short veils into the air. In shade, chill lingers longer than in sun. Swallows stitch the gap with quick lines and keep the cliff busy. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. At a coast of fresh rock, black sand warms early and holds heat. Grains came from glass that waves ground to size. Foam leaves salt lace on the strand and then clears. Turtle tracks cross the morning and vanish by noon. By evening, the beach is brown again, where older sand mixes in. Amar Lake sits in a shallow ring of tuff. The rim tilts outward and shows beds that grade from fine to coarse. Reeds move in slow wind and hide small fish. On still days, the surface mirrors a pale cone that has not spoken in a long time. People on benches talk in low voices and let the day pass. At night in a wide valley, a dome breathes soft light. The curve grows and shrinks as fresh lobes lift the skin. Now and then, a hot block rolls into a gully and rests with a hiss. Stars hold their places above the rim. A distant town sees a faint glow and forgets the hour. Far offshore, a ridge works without weather. Pillows swell and freeze as soon as they touch cold water. Black smokers build towers grain by grain and fall when the heat shifts. Shrimp crowd the warm sides and clean antennae with care. The workshop runs on chemistry and keeps an even pace. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. In a forest on young soil, trunks grow quick and straight. Ash holds water like a patient sponge and gives it back. Needles soften the floor and make a smell that speaks of rain. After a storm, brown streams carry fine grains and lay them in fans at bends. Each fan dries, cracks, and waits for the next season. A vineyard climbs a flank that cooled years ago. Basalt breaks into small stones that drain well and hold warmth. Vines like the balance and set their roots deep. Rows follow contour lines that slow the run of water. From far away, the whole slope looks quiet and sure. A road cut crosses an old lahar and shows its shape. Boulders rest in a pale matrix that sets like cement. Some stones carry grooves from tumbling under heavy water. The base grades into river sand where the surge lost power. A thin ash cap finishes the page and makes a neat close. In winter, steam writes white lines on dark roofs near hot ground. Snow melts in circles where heat rises through soil. A small plant stays green beside a vent that never sleeps. Birds choose perches just outside the damp air. The valley keeps color when the ridge turns grey. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. A caldera floor hosts lakes that shift color with gas and light. Green means algae after a bright week. Blue means depth and clear air. White means suspended clay after a small slide. Shorelines change by inches, and birds learn new edges first. A boardwalk keeps feet dry and the crust safe. Rhyolite hills weather to smooth, pale shapes. Flow bands curve like lines in wood and meet at gentle angles. Obsidian lies in dark shards where the last skin cooled fast. A chip still holds an edge as thin as a hair. Wind moves sand across it and leaves a soft ring. On a broad plateau, cooling joints built walls that run straight for kilometers. Farmers use them as field lines and windbreaks. In the gaps, napped glass still hides under grass from earlier hands. A spring rises where a dike blocks a small valley. Livestock gather in its shade and ignore old stories. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. A trench off a steep coast draws quakes along a deep curve. Some arrive sharp, others glide in slow slip that lasts weeks. Tide gauges show millimeters in quiet harbors after each step. Mud cores from the wedge bring back shells that date old pushes. The pattern stays steady even when seasons forget themselves. On the arc above, cones set at a repeating distance from the trench. Water in the slab lowers melting points and feeds pockets. Magma rises, stalls, mixes, and chooses a path. Some melt reaches air and writes a plume. Some cools in place and hardens into ribs we will see later in cliffs. Behind the arc, extension wins and opens a basin. Small ridges split and build new crust in dark rooms. Hydrothermal towers line fresh cracks and host pale gardens. Animals follow chemistry instead of sun. The sea hides the work with a flat face. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. In a field of cinder cones, each hill tells a short tale. A magnet finds a strong signal on one flank, where lava froze last. The crater holds snow longer than nearby ground. A pond at the base writes a circle of reeds each spring. Children slide down ash on plastic sheets and laugh all afternoon. A column of ash climbs on a day with steady wind. The top spreads like an umbrella and leans across ridges. Planes avoid the corridor without debate. Engines do not forgive glass dust. By evening, the plume thins and leaves rare colors at sunset. High on a glacier-clad cone, heat of a small vent melts roofs and draws floods. Water lifts ice, finds a gate, and runs out in hours. Boulders roll slow and loud across the plain. When the level drops, braided channels lie clean on sand. Black lines on white show the route from the air. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Monitoring reads what eyes cannot. Seismometers count brittle pops and long tones. Tilt meters feel slopes lean by a coin's thickness. GPS points separate and reunite by millimeters. Gas sensors watch ratios that tell where the pathway changed. Together, they draw a map of pressure breath. Drones cross hot ground and sample thin air. A small spectrometer reads sulfur and carbon in the plume. Cameras return images of fresh cracks and soft rims. Flights repeat the line next week and see what moved. The work is quiet and exact. Satellites compare photos and find fringes where the ground rose or sank. Thermal bands show warm threads under new ash. Night scenes pick out lake glow through cloud. Wide swaths make patterns visible that feet would miss. The mountain keeps its own pace while the data arrives. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Culture holds these places in many kinds of memory. Names recall water that ran hot and stones that sang after rain. Festivals mark harvests grown on rich soils. Songs learn the wind that carries a thin plume and the hush after ash. A roadside shrine keeps bright string and small coins near a warm vent. Archaeology opens doors buried in pumice and finds rooms neat as if waiting for company. Bread loaves carbonized in ovens keep their shape. A dog's print crosses ash on a lake margin and stops at the waterline. Layers above show the slow return of noise. The street regains its voice in patient steps. Paintings from old winters show skies with odd violets and copper reds. Brushes caught deep dust that lasted longer than usual. Later work tied those colors to aerosols high in air after tall eruptions. Canvas had held the clue, while science learned the words. The link feels tidy and kind. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Other worlds keep related rules in different rooms. Mars built shields that stretch wide under thin air. Flows run long because gravity is gentle and plates do not slide. A canyon cuts a flood basalt and shows steps like ours on a grand scale. Dust gives everything one extra color. Venus hides under heavy cloud and keeps heat close. Radar maps show domes and fields that look young in places. Channels carved by lava run for hundreds of kilometers. The planet wears a tight blanket that changes the pace, but not the physics. Io blazes with tidal work. Jupiter needs it and powers plumes that rise high and fall as frost. Fresh deposits brighten the surface in patches, then fade. The cycle runs fast and steady. The moon shows what stress can do without much help from sun. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Back home, a city near a quiet cone keeps normal habits. Hazard maps hang in schools and shops. Drills run once a season and feel simple. Routes to high ground are short and known. Good days end without alarms. A geothermal field hums beyond town. Steam turns turbines and warms pools. Brine cools and returns below to keep pressure honest. Streets stay clear of snow without salt. Heat becomes comfort instead of drama. At dusk, a small vent writes a red seam that opens and heals. The lake below wrinkles and smooths again. Coyotes cross warm culverts and leave clean tracks. Stars settle into their old pattern above the rim. If you feel sleep near, the line will be easy to find again. We have walked coasts and tubes, arcs and basins, farms and museums. The ground has built more than it broke and kept its even voice. Ahead lie long stair-step canyons and deep time written in lake cores. The story will wait in the same calm tone. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. A stair-step canyon reads like a careful ledger. Rivers cut down through stacked flows and expose pages. Each bench holds a cooling joint pattern, and each cliff shows a clean break. Morning light walks the walls in even strides and reveals small ledges where swallows rest. On a wide plateau, flood basalt spread in sheets that once flowed for days. The surfaces keep ropey skins where edges slowed. Skylights open to drain tubes that hold pale sand. A single juniper stands where a crack gathers winter water. Between sheets, old soils appear as soft bands. Roots once reached into that thin layer and left smooth traces. Charcoal flecks mark a fire that ran through grass and shrubs. The page closes, and the next flow begins with a dark line. A road crosses the country on straight sections and gentle bends. Cuts reveal columns that point downward and upward in perfect order. Farmers use the jointed blocks for fences and corners. Cattle lean against warm stones at dusk without reading the geology. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. A lake core looks plain until the light strikes it. Dark summer and pale winter couplet bands repeat in calm rhythm. A single grey stripe of ash runs straight across the cylinder. Counting between those marks gives years the way beads give numbers. Grains inside the ash tell where the wind blew from. Glass shards match a known chemistry and link lakes across distances. An ice core from far mountains carries the same thin page. Time aligns between mud and ice with quiet confidence. In another core, pollen shifts counts through centuries. Pine yields to oak, then returns during cooler decades. A thin black layer notes a fire season that touched many hills. Volcanic silt rises after a nearby cone wrote a new paragraph. On a windy day, the lake wears small waves and keeps its story. A boat passes, and ripples reach a marsh without fuss. Dragonflies hold place above reeds that bend slowly. The core sleeps in a cool drawer and needs no witness. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. A cliff of welded tuff rings under a light hammer. The sheet formed in hours and cooled for days. Cooling joints draw tidy polygons down the face. Trails cross the talus with patient switchbacks and small cairns. Across the valley, rhyolite domes weather to pale hills. Bands curve like lines in wood and meet at calm angles. Obsidian scatters in dark chips along the slope. A single flake still holds an edge finer than a hair. Farther south, a field of cinder cones dots a plain. Each hill keeps a shallow bowl and a narrow rim. Ash crunches underfoot and holds prints after a light rain. Children slide down on plastic sheets and laugh without pause. A Laha terrace lies above a river bend and looks like a bench. Boulders rest in pale matrix that sets like cement. Driftwood at the back shows the high line from one season. Cottonwoods root deep where the bank stops. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. A summit observatory watches a crater lake like a quiet clock. Thermal cameras catch warm threads on the surface. Gas sensors report numbers that rise and fall with clear patterns. The staff writes short notes and closes the door at night. A satellite pair returns images that overlay cleanly. Colored fringes bloom where the ground lifted by a few centimeters. A week later, the pattern changes or fades. The map tells a simple story in thin lines. Seismometers hear small pops at depth and long tones near the surface. Clusters climb from many kilometers to a few. Frequencies shift as rock breaks and melt moves. The traces fill a screen that looks calm and technical. A drone follows a repeat track above a new crack. Sulfur and carbon sensors read fresh plumes. The camera returns images of rims and small slides. A pilot stands far off and keeps a steady hand. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Geothermal lines hum beyond a hillside town. Steam spins turbines and warms pools and homes. Brine cools and returns below to balance pressure. Streets stay clear of snow without salt or noise. Work crews walk Laha routes in quiet weather. They map culverts that clog and mark low walls that fail. Drills lead schools along short paths to high ground. Sirens remain silent because habit does the work. A vineyard thrives on a flank of old basalt. Stones hold heat and drain water to depths the vines prefer. Rows follow contour lines that resist sudden runoff. Baskets fill in late summer, and the slope stays neat. A riverbed exposes a folded contact between two flows. The lower sheet cracked and grew columns as it cooled. The upper sheet draped over and preserved the curve. A heron steps along the seam and finds still water in pockets. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. At sea, a ridge keeps its small routine under miles of water. Pillows swell and chill into rounded piles. Black smokers rise as dark towers and collapse when walls weaken. Shrimp and worms gather where chemistry offers meals. Off-axis, sediment thickens and hides earlier heat. Basalt alters to green along old dikes. A core lifts a thin ash band that matches a known plume. The date ties the deep page to a day on land. A seamount with a flat top drifts with a plate. Waves once planed it at sea level for long centuries. Coral rings its rim until depth defeats light. Currents wrap the sides and gather life along edges. On maps, gravity shows bumps over hidden mass. The surface rises and falls by centimeters across wide basins. Satellite eyes read the texture like careful fingers. From those notes, we infer hills and trenches we may never touch. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. A snowbound cone keeps a winter schedule. Heat lifts through vents and opens early circles in drifts. Meltwater runs in black threads and freezes into blue glass. Spring reveals patterns that match fractures on summer maps. Under ice sheets, eruptions draw different shapes. Pillow piles grow under a roof, then glassy rubble adds mass. If the roof breaks, a flat-topped edifice remains. The land keeps the memory long after the ice leaves. When a flood bursts from under ice, hours do the work of years. Jökulhlaups carve channels in braided sand. House-sized blocks settle in quiet rows. A plane later traces black lines across white with little effort. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. A museum holds bread loaves carbonized in ovens. A street uncovered under pumice looks ready to open again. A dog's print crosses ash at a lake margin and stops at the waterline. The layers above show the slow return of daily sound. Painters caught deeper dusk after tall eruptions. Violets and copper reds kept to the sky for months. Science later tied those colors to aerosols in high air. Canvas had held the clue while words were still new. Tree rings narrowed in years after big events. Lines align across valleys and seas. Ice cores kept bubbles from those winters. Together they show when sunlight dimmed and how long it took to clear. A roadside shrine near a warm vent collects small coins. Strings fade and are replaced after rain. People tie notes that ask for calm ground and easy harvest. The steam lifts and vanishes without reply. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Other worlds carry related stories in different rooms. Mars built broad shields over stationary heat. Low gravity and thin air let flows run long. A canyon cuts flood basalts and shows steps like ours in grand scale. Venus hides under thick cloud and keeps heat close. Radar maps reveal domes and channels that look young. The planet wears a blanket that changes pace, but not physics. Some fields may still be warm below the skin. Io glows with tidal work near a giant planet. Plumes rise high and fall as frost. Fresh deposits brighten then fade with steady cycles. The timetable is fast and consistent. Our moon shows dark Maria that are frozen seas of basalt. Far basins filled after impacts and cooled under empty sky. Glass beads in regolith tell of quiet fire. The far side stayed high and rough. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. An evening passes on a rim road with small talk and long looks. A red seam opens on a lake and heals again. Fumaroles draw thin threads that turn gold and then clear. Coyotes cross warm culverts and leave clean tracks. Night holds steady, and the summit glow pulses in slow breaths. The crater keeps even minutes and little drama. Stars settle into their old pattern over a broken ring. Cars turn back along curves that know the way. We have crossed stair-step canyons and lake archives, farms and ridges, ice roofs and sea seams. The ground has built more than it broke and did it with steady hands. If sleep arrives, the route will be easy to find again. The story will wait in the same calm tone. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Dawn spreads quietly across a wide field of old flows. Frost lies in hollows where night pooled, and sunlight walks down in small steps. Columns warm and let a faint crack speak as ice releases. Ravens cross the face in shallow arcs and fold themselves into the wind. A road bends toward a caldera rim and then keeps distance. The ring shows blocks that sank by stages during a long day. Lakes inside hold separate colors that change with season and gas. Domes sit on the floor and add mass a few meters at a time. A terrace of travertine grows where spring water meets air. Thin sheets of calcite rim pools and overflow to the next. Colors come from microbes that prefer certain heat. In the quiet, you can hear a slow drip and nothing else. Across a valley, a wall of welded tuff keeps straight pages. Cooling joints draw tidy lines down the face. A hammer rings on the denser layer and thuds on the upper. Switchbacks climb and reach a view that looks older than the road. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. A field of cinder cones keeps many short stories. Each hill has a bowl, a narrow rim, and a faint line where the last lava left. Snow stays in the shadow longer than on the plain. In summer, kids slide on ash and leave wide letters that vanish with the next wind. A basalt plateau shows stairs where sheets stacked and cooled. Skylights open to tubes that hold pale sand and cool air. A small juniper stands in a crack that keeps winter water. Lizards share the warm stones and move in start-stop lines. Downstream, a lahar terrace holds boulders in a pale matrix. Old driftwood at the back shows the high level from one season. Cottonwoods root deep where the bank stops. The river cuts again and leaves a clean face. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. At sea, a ridge works in steady minutes. Pillows swell, skin and chill. Black smokers build towers grain by grain and fall when walls thin. Shrimp crowd the warm sides and sweep antennae like careful brushes. Farther off axis, sediment hides old heat and softens the floor. Basalt turns green along dikes where water once moved. A core lifts a thin ash stripe that matches a known plume day. Mud and glass tie deep pages to a calendar on land. A seamount with a shaved top drifts with its plate. Waves once leveled it for long centuries. Coral ringed the rim until depth took the light. Currents wrap the flanks and gather life along edges. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Under ice, an eruption carves new rooms. Meltwater lifts roofs and runs in black threads. Floods burst and draw braided maps in hours. When winter returns, the pattern rests under white until spring. Under lakes, bubbles stitch carbonate towers. Microbes coat pale frames with soft skins. Divers move slowly and let silt settle before the view returns. The work is delicate and exact. Under desert skies, rhyolite domes weather to smooth, pale hills. Flow bands curve like lines in wood. Obsidian chips lie in dark fans below outcrops. A single flake still holds an edge finer than hair. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. A town near a quiet cone keeps plain habits. Route signs point to high ground with short lines. Drains are cleared before the wet season. Roofs are pitched to shed ash and snow. Sirens stay quiet because drills do their work. Fields on young soil grow vines and grains. Basalt breaks into stones that drain and hold warmth. Rows follow contours that steady the flow of water. Harvest comes even in lean years, and the slope stays neat. A geothermal field hums beyond the last houses. Steam spins turbines and warms pools and homes. Brine cools and returns below to keep pressure honest. Streets stay clear of ice without salt or noise. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. In a lab, a thin section rotates under polarized light. Plagioclase shows zebra bands, olivine holds soft green, and pyroxene keeps a grey that turns with the stage. The slice reveals a quiet crowd of crystals in frozen motion. The story is slow and readable. A lake core lies in a tray and looks plain until light strikes it. Dark summer and pale winter bands repeat in steady rhythm. A single ash line reads like a ruler across the page. Counting between lines gives years you can trust. Seismometers record small pops at depth and long tones near the surface. Patterns climb from many kilometers to a few. Gas sensors read ratios that mark changes in path. Satellites return fringes where ground rose by centimeters and then relaxed. Meanwhile, the Earth keeps our place. Hazards remain, but live with order. Lahar channels are mapped and cleared of logs in dry weather. Bridges stand higher and leave room for thick water. Schools walk routes and keep masks and goggles on a shelf. Radios test on good days, not only during storms. Recovery plans begin before anything starts. Bulldozers know where to push heavy mud. Teams know which drains clog first. Hospitals keep filters for dusty air. Streets open in sections and return to quiet. Farmers treat ash like a gift once the weight is gone. Fields are scraped where depth is high and ploughed where it is thin. Mixed ash holds water for later seasons. Orchards accept pruning where branches bent under load. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Elsewhere, a trench draws a curve of quakes that step in depth. Slow slip slides for weeks without a sound. Above, an arc sets cones at repeating distance and chemistry shifts with speed and water. Behind, a small basin opens and grows young crust in dark rooms. Hotspot trails write a record of motion with islands and guyos. Ages increase along the line like addresses on a street. A bend keeps the date of a change in drift. Coral keeps pace until light thins and stops. Large provinces tell long stories in low voices. Flood basalts pour from fissures and fill regions with sheets. Gas plays on climate and shifts growth zones. Rivers carve canyons that read like tall stacks of calm pages. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Other worlds keep related rules in different rooms. Mars built shields that dwarf ours under thin air. Low gravity let flows run far and cool to long roads. A canyon cuts flood basalts and shows steps like ours on a wide scale. Venus hides under heavy cloud and keeps heat close. Radar maps reveal domes and channels that look young in places. The pace is different, but the physics stays familiar. The planet wears a thick blanket that changes how we read it. Io glows with tidal work near a giant planet. Plumes rise high and fall as frost. Fresh deposits brighten then fade on quick cycles. The timetable is fast and regular. Our moon shows dark Maria that are frozen seas of basalt. Basins filled after impacts and cooled under empty sky. Glass beads in regolith tell of quiet fire. The far side stayed high and rough. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. Back at the rim, evening takes bright rock to calm grey. Fumaroles lift thin threads that turn gold and then clear. A crater lake draws red seams that open and heal. The glow breathes in small pulses, and the mountain keeps even minutes. Downslope, old flows release the day's warmth to air. Lizards find last light on a stone and then choose shade. A fox crosses a cinder road and leaves neat tracks. The slope accepts night without ceremony. In a museum, bread loaves from long ago keep their shapes in black. A street under pumice looks ready to open. A dog's print crosses ash at a lake margin and stops at water. The layers above show the slow return of noise. The room feels steady and exact. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place. If you look back along our route, the line is clean. We walked shields and cones, tubes and domes, ridges and trenches, ice roofs and sea floors. We read crystals and cores, maps and quiet instruments. We saw towns plan for water and ash and go on with ordinary days. Volcanoes built more than they broke in these scenes. They fed soils, warmed houses, held archives, and taught patience. Noise came in short chapters. The long chapters were careful and slow. The ground kept to steady work. If your eyes begin to close, the next part can wait. The planet is not in a hurry, and neither are we. When you return, the route will be easy to find again. The story will start at the rim or the sea or the lab, and the voice will be the same. Meanwhile, the earth keeps our place.